Well, 3 Republican representatives have introduced articles of impeachment against Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Viva Frei, Montreal litigator turned YouTuber, and it is time to take a break from the incessant elections, lawsuits, and stories to go back to the state of Michigan and the impeachment of Gretchen Whitmer. But in order to do that, we have to go back to a court order from the beginning of October. For those of you who have been following my channel for a while, you will recall that I did a live stream with Robert Barnes where we talked about the recent judgment coming out of Michigan declaring certain executive orders issued by Governor Whitmer to be unconstitutional.
The EMA is the 1995 law. The EMPA, the Emergency Management Powers Act, is from 1945. Whitmer, setting aside the scope of the executive orders that she was issuing, went well beyond the original time frame provided for in the Emergency Management Act, which was 30 days, I believe. She basically says, I'm going to be issuing executive orders pretty much indefinitely, notwithstanding the terminology of the EMA, which says it has to be limited to 30 days, without going through the legislature. Basically, the executive now making the laws.
Governor Whitmer's sweeping executive orders were declared unconstitutional for one of 2 reasons, the first of which was that it exceeded the time frame authorized under the Emergency Measures Act of Michigan, that being 30 days. The executive orders were also declared unconstitutional in virtue of the fact that the Emergency Powers Act, in virtue of which those executive orders were issued, was itself declared to be unconstitutional because it granted powers to the executive that were reserved for the legislative branches of government. And for those of you who may not trust either Robert or myself, from the Associated Press, October 2, 2020. Michigan governor's virus powers upended with court ruling. Lansing, Michigan, Associated Press. A 1945 law repeatedly used by Governor Gretchen Whitmer to respond to the coronavirus pandemic was declared unconstitutional Friday by the Michigan Supreme Court, a striking decision that puts months of restrictions in jeopardy while COVID-19 continues to flare up around the state. The opinion is an extraordinary development in a months-long conflict between Whitmer, a Democrat, and Republicans who control the legislature and have complained that they have been shut out of sweeping orders that have impacted education, the economy, and healthcare. And as reported by CNN, the court further denied Whitmer's request to delay the effects of that judgment rendered by the court. The Michigan Supreme Court on Monday denied Governor Gretchen Whitmer's request to delay the effect of an opinion that ruled her executive orders on the coronavirus pandemic are unconstitutional. 10 days ago, the court ruled Whitmer, a Democrat who is a former prosecutor and a first-time governor, had no authority to issue or renew executive orders relating to COVID-19 beyond April 30th. Whitmer filed a motion last Monday saying more time was needed to, quote, allow for an orderly transition during which some responsive measures can be placed under alternative executive authority and the governor and legislature can work to address many other pandemic-related matters that currently fall under executive orders, end quote. In its order, the court also stated as follows. In its order Monday, the court wrote that, quote, our decision today leaves open many avenues for our governor and legislature to work together in a cooperative spirit and constitutional manner to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic, end quote. Faced with the court order declaring her previous executive orders unconstitutional and denying her a delay to remedy those deficiencies, what does Governor Gretchen Whitmer do?
She issued more executive orders.
Michigan shutters in-person dining, high school sports in response to COVID-19 case surge. Updated November 15, 2020. Posted November 15, 2020. By Samuel Dodge. Lansing, Michigan. Governor Gretchen Whitmer announced new COVID-19 restrictions Sunday night amid spiking cases, hospitalizations, and deaths throughout Michigan. She gave a rare impromptu weekend briefing alongside Michigan Department of Health and Human Services Chief Medical Executive Dr. Jonig Khaldoun and MDHHS Director Robert Gordon at 6 p.m. Sunday, November 15. The trio outlined the order that sets a 3-week period of new restrictions, including a ban on in-person learning at colleges and high schools and the suspension of high school sports and dine-in service at Michigan restaurants and bars. Remote work is required if that is possible for the employees. The restrictions will take effect on Wednesday, November 18 and last through the Thanksgiving holiday and until December 8, according to a document summarizing the changes obtained by MLive. Just take a moment to appreciate the context and power struggle that is going on here. Governor Whitmer issued a number of executive orders that were ultimately declared unconstitutional because they exceeded the time frame provided for in the Emergency Measures Act and because the Emergency Powers Act law from 1945 was itself declared unconstitutional because it did not work with the legislature, but rather usurped the power of the legislature.
Delegatus non potest delegare, meaning that which has been delegated cannot delegate further.
The court denied Governor Whitmer's request to extend the delay so that she could remedy the deficiencies in the executive orders. They invited her to go work with the legislature to pass the laws properly, and what does she do? A few weeks later, she comes back with her own additional executive orders yet again. Faced with this latest pull in this political and legal tug of war, what do the Republican representatives do? They file articles of impeachment, and we're going to go through those right now. This resolution is offered to comply with Article 11, Section 7 of the Constitution of the State of Michigan of 1963, House Resolution number 324. Representatives Lefebvre, Maddock, and Rendon offered the following resolution. A resolution directing the impeachment of Gretchen E. Whitmer, Governor of the State of Michigan, for corrupt conduct in office and crimes and misdemeanors. Perhaps the most important whereas in the preambles of the resolution reads as follows. Whereas in responding to the COVID-19 pandemic, Gretchen E. Whitmer has acted in conflict with her constitutional duties as governor. She has exceeded her constitutional authority, violated the constitutional rights of the people of Michigan, issued orders that are not in the best interests of the people of this state, and used the pandemic as an opportunity to reward political allies. These actions are a matter of public record, primarily in the form of executive orders and the enforcement thereof. The Republican representatives then go on to set out 4 articles of impeachment, and we're going to go through them one by one. Article 1. Gretchen E. Whitmer, Governor of the State of Michigan, has violated her constitutional oath of office by failing to respect the separation of powers and by exercising powers expressly granted to the legislative branch in the Constitution of the State of Michigan of 1963. Governor Whitmer, through numerous executive orders, has bypassed the legislative process, refusing to work with the legislature even when the legislature has been in session, opting to effectively enact, amend, and repeal laws on her own. The first article in the articles of impeachment are basically a summary of the court orders that had declared her executive orders unconstitutional and basically ordered her to go back and work with the legislature to pass laws properly. Governor Whitmer has repeatedly stated that she does not need further legislative authorization for any of her actions and continues to violate the separation of powers even when the legislature has been in session, passing bills in the response to the pandemic. Her efforts to circumvent the legislature and the state constitution are violations of her constitutional oath of office, wherefore Gretchen E. Whitmer, by such conduct, warrants impeachment and trial and removal from office. There are a couple of extra thes in there, but I am by no means one to pick on the typos of others. Moving on to Article 2 of the Articles of Impeachment. Article 2. Gretchen E. Whitmer, Governor of the State of Michigan, has failed to uphold her constitutional oath of office by violating rights guaranteed in the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Michigan of 1963. Governor Whitmer, through executive orders, has restricted and effectively banned the free exercise of religion in the State of Michigan in violation of the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution and Article 1, Section 4 of the Constitution of the State of Michigan of 1963. The articles of impeachment go on to say that during the course of the pandemic, Governor Whitmer had issued executive orders limiting the number of people who could gather for worship, and even though apparently she said that she would not impose criminal sanctions, this is nonetheless a violation of religious freedoms. Moving on to Article 3 of the Articles of Impeachment. Article 3. In responding to the COVID-19 pandemic, Gretchen E. Whitmer, Governor of the State of Michigan, has taken a number of extreme actions that have not been necessary for the protection of public and have had significant adverse effects on the people of Michigan. While the pandemic is a serious public health crisis requiring substantial mitigation efforts, Governor Whitmer's aggressive and poorly justified action, such as banning nearly all non-emergency medicine and the use of motorized boats, are evidence of the governor's failure to properly manage this crisis. Now, just to illustrate how seemingly arbitrary these executive orders were in their drafting, the articles of impeachment explain as follows. Governor Whitmer further acted against the interest of the people of Michigan with no connection to public safety in temporarily banning the use of motorized boats under Executive Order number 2020-42. Under the order, as interpreted by the Department of Natural Resources, the use of a motorboat, jet ski, or similar watercraft was prohibited, even though non-motorized boating, such as canoeing, kayaking, and sailing, were permitted under the order. There was apparently also some incidental controversy specifically as relates to the boating executive order, in that apparently Governor Whitmer's husband had asked that his boat be placed in the water before Memorial Day weekend, something he says was a misconstrued joke. Purported Northern Michigan boat launch request fuels controversy for Whitmer. The owner of a Northern Michigan dock company says Governor Gretchen Whitmer's husband wanted his boat placed in the water before the Memorial Day weekend, as Whitmer urged residents not to rush to the region. According to CNN, Whitmer faces backlash over husband's, quote, failed attempt at humor about their boat. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer is in hot water for what she's describing as a bad joke her husband told a Northern Michigan dock company as he sought to retrieve their boat ahead of Memorial Day weekend. The New York Times wrote an article to the same effect. Whatever, believe it if you want, but on to the last article from the Articles of Impeachment. Article 4. Gretchen E. Whitmer, Governor of the State of Michigan, sought to direct a no-bid contract for COVID-19 contact tracing to a partisan political firm utilizing state resources to reward political allies. The state announced in April 2020 that it had approved a contract to use the platform Every Action Van to help track information and contacts and to help organize phone banking for the purposes of contact tracing. Every Action Van has direct ties to people and organizations that perform political work for the political parties, organizations, and candidates in Michigan. While the governors and members of the administration disputed the extent to which political considerations were part of the decision to choose this platform, there is no dispute that Every Action Van's leadership also does political work through its other companies. The contract was canceled after it became public and faced backlash, but the attempt to award a no-bid contract to a partisan firm that would have granted access to extremely personal and sensitive information of Michigan citizens is a clear abuse of power. Using the urgency of a public health crisis to attempt to reward partisan allies is a violation of the public trust. Wherefore, Gretchen E. Whitmer by such conduct warrants impeachment and trial and removal from office. And be it further resolved that in accordance with Article 11, Section 7 of the Constitution of the State of Michigan of 1963, the House of Representatives will proceed with the election of 3 members from its own body, whose duty it shall be to prosecute such impeachment, and that these members are authorized and empowered to prepare and present the Articles of Impeachment adopted by this resolution. Now, from what I understand, the impeachment of a governor is very similar to the impeachment of the president, and we all know I've done a ton of vlogs on the impeachment of Donald J. Trump, but just to read an excerpt from the Constitution of the State of Michigan, which sets out the procedure. Impeachment of civil officers. Section 7. The House of Representatives shall have the sole power of impeaching civil officers for corrupt conduct in office or for crimes or misdemeanors, but a majority of the members elected thereto and serving therein shall be necessary to direct an impeachment. When an impeachment is directed, the House of Representatives shall elect 3 of its members to prosecute the impeachment. Every impeachment shall be tried by the Senate immediately after the final adjournment of the legislature. The senators shall take an oath or affirmation truly and impartially to try and determine the impeachment according to the evidence. When the governor or lieutenant governor is tried, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court shall preside. No person shall be convicted without the concurrence of 2/3 of the senators elected and serving. Judgment in case of conviction shall not extend further than removal from office, but the person convicted shall be liable to punishment according to law. No judicial officer shall exercise any of the functions of his office after an impeachment is directed until he is acquitted. So there you have it. I don't know what the chances of success of this impeachment are. I don't know if it is as much a political game as was the impeachment of Donald Trump. One thing is for certain, I will be discussing it with Robert Barnes during our weekly live streams, but at the very least, now you know the details of this impeachment. If and when there are any developments, sure as sugar, I will be doing a follow-up vlog on it. And if you like my videos and you like my content, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, drop a comment in the comment section below because it feeds the algorithm.
Feed me all night long.
If you want to support the channel, all of the support links are in the pinned comment. We've got PayPal, Patreon, subscribe to our YouTube membership, follow Robert Barnes and I on our locals page. It is vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Follow me on rumble.com at Viva Frei. But more important than any of that, take care of yourselves, check out on friends and family, make sure everyone around you is doing well during these very stressful times. And now you know your vlog. Peace out.